Good evening, everybody, and we're back here again doing another Q&A on the Unknown Machine, back in the inner sanctum of the Inner Harp production studio. I hope you're all keeping well, and it's nice where you are. It's a glorious summer day here in Ireland, all over Ireland. It's been very warm and sunny, and summer has definitely arrived. So the theme of tonight's show is basically power systems and powerful individuals, kings, queens, presidents, governments, using sorcery and magic to their advantage, not only necessarily in a conspiratorial sense for power and so on, but also in things interesting in the occult and the general level, like spiritualism and everything else. So the questions will be broadly, you can send in that context. But if you want to ask me other questions, you can, as long as nothing to do with politics and no hard politics, and don't ask me political opinions or anything like that. But if there's anything that may be relevant to my work in general and psychopaths or anything, you feel free to ask those questions. The broad theme tonight is, though, as always, we have a central theme, and that is sorcery and power and magic in power systems. So I believe the questions are coming in flying now. So what's the first question?
Yeah, there's a lot of people in the online already, Thomas, and a lot of questions are coming in. So just to get us moving, here's one on the Irish alphabet. Niall asks, what are the best resources for learning about Om and Om workings?
Well, there's loads of stuff. In terms of the magic stuff, a lot of it tends to be a bit on the New Agey side. It doesn't have the same, in terms of using magical practice, it doesn't have the same voluminous, gravitas that, say, the Futak runes would have in Nordic magic or Germanic magic. The best sources that I just basically learned the runes and what they meant and how to spell them. I can't do it. I have to look it up in a book. I can't do it, I haven't memorized it by hand. But there are basically 3 oracles connected to each individual Om script symbol. You see, I use the Uthath, which is the thorn combined with the Thurzaz rune. And the two of them together, I've created a logo for myself from that, almost like a kind of a sigil in a way, I guess. So, yeah, I mean, I would just say I would be wary of taking courses and things like that, because, as I said, a lot of it tends to be New Agey. What I would suggest doing is just get yourself, get familiar with the letters, and you could use them just like sigils. There's no reason to stop using them like sigils. Now, how you just remove the repeating letters, which would be the strokes, I guess, in order to create them. And I have heard of a few people that have done sigil magic using Oms, but I've never done it myself, really, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, just learn it, and then in a kind of a chaos magic kind of way, carefully now, try to adapt it into your present magical working. So that's what I would do. But if I tell you, I'll look around, and if I can find someone who's credible, I'll announce it in the next video or something like that. So thanks for the first question.
Yeah, the second one gets a little bit deeper. This is from Morris, and he's asking, what's the typical ceremony for pagans when they die? I've heard some like to be placed on a hill and eaten by the crows. And what will you do?
Well, I'm going to be cremated. That's that's what I'm going to do. I don't want to. Cremation seems to be the most common. Like, if you look at the older elements of what we call the sort of proto-European world, cremation seems to be most common. It's still heavily practiced in Hindu and other cultures that are rooted to that. That's what I'm going to do. Now, what you're talking about is excarnation. Now, there seems to be a lot of evidence in Neolithic and Bronze Age Ireland and Britain that excarnation was commonly practiced. They call that sky burial in the Native American and Tibetan tradition, where basically the body is left out in the open for the birds to take it. Now, this is why we have ravens and crows and general birds like that are often associated with pagan rituals. Probably goes right back to that. And we know that excarnation was practiced because when the bones were gathered up, they were put into urns and placed inside of the burial mounds or into pits. And they never had fingers or toe bones because they were small enough for the ravens to carry off. So that's how we know that excarnation was definitely practiced in the Neolithic and the Bronze Age times. But yeah, I've always wanted to be cremated. That's always been my. I like the idea of just being quickly out of here, not taking up unnecessarily space. I don't like the idea of a grave with my name on it. It seems to be, that's almost like, it's reinforcing that you're gone, that kind of thing. I want to be able to move, my soul to be moved on as quickly as possible and reincarnated as quickly as possible. And that's why I've chosen to be cremated. But that would be an appropriate one for me. You could have a ritual regarding the ashes. I wouldn't say scatter them necessarily in megalithic areas because, again, I'm not crazy about the idea of these places being used for rituals constantly because we don't know if we're offending the people who originally built them. Pick a place that you really love, like a beautiful beach or a river or something like that, and maybe have a kind of a ceremony of passing your ashes into that. But yeah, it looks like excarnation, but also we do have evidence of burials as well. So it was everything, we do, proper burials. So it seems to be that excarnation was what you're talking about. The sky burials was very, very common too. But I don't know if legally you'd be allowed to do that these days.
Next question is from Tombs42. And he says, great video yesterday on data centers. And on that topic, I think CERN is where the silicon demons entered our reality with the discovery of the so-called God particle. Any thoughts on CERN?
Yeah, I was thinking about that thing when it came out. And I remember Rupert Sheldrake, he said that the God particle probably wasn't discovered. It was probably energized into manifestation by all these scientists at CERN, at the Hadron Collider, wishing for it and hoping for it. And as you can definitely see it as a kind of like one ring to rule them all thing, because they keep building bigger and bigger particle colliders. In fact, apparently there's an even bigger one now being built in Geneva, under the city of Geneva, and a substantial part of that canton in Switzerland, to find the next particle. It's a very interesting sort of psychological process that they're involved in. Yeah, but I think they definitely are. I think all they created is a magic circle, and they brought things into manifestation. I knew a guy who worked as an electrical engineer at CERN, and he said it was like a cult compound. He says they're basically, it's like people walking around in a cult. They're all like false smiles and kind of like, hello, and how are you? This kind of like a behavior associated with cult behavior, where there's a kind of a personality vacuum among the individuals there. He said they were all very nice and everything, but he said it didn't feel right. It didn't feel very scientific. It seemed more they were almost like worshipping the particle collider. It was like a god to them. So yeah, I think they absolutely did magic there, even though they don't know they did, or maybe they do and they don't publicly announce it.
Next one is from Bite Size Boxing, and he asks, do you foresee powers that be launching another audacious black magic spell like COVID again, or do you believe that was a once-in-a-generation event?
I think that was the precursor to the next big one. I think COVID was probably a test run. They got lots of useful data from that. You see, when you run a magical operation, if you do it properly, especially if it's a new one, you have to keep, the scribe. The scribe has to write down things as they progress. And you take notice of like the weather and everything. If you're doing a long-term one, and things like the phases of the moon. But also behavior, changes in yourself, changes in your physiology, changes in your psychological behavior, or the individuals. If it's a coven type ritual thing, a ceremonial thing, you monitor things like that, and it's a way of safely stewarding the whole thing along. So when you do the banishing ritual at the end, now remember they didn't really do a banishing ritual unless you include the the Ukraine war. They suddenly just stopped when the Ukraine war started in most places with COVID. But I think that was just a dress rehearsal. They just got the date that they needed for the next big one. What that is, could be anything. I don't know, but I have a feeling it's something to do with AI. It'll have to do with some kind of false reality, maybe an imaginary nuclear war created or something that only exists on screens. And I don't know. But I do think, that was a once in a lifetime generation until that point event COVID was. But I think that was just a dress rehearsal. I don't know what's coming. I don't know when it's coming. But that was the whole use of black magic in that was so blatant and so obvious. It was resplendent with the whole philosophical Satanism thing of you finally making the decision to damage yourself or humiliate yourself. It was full of humiliation rituals, and that's why even if you made fun of it, like I used to use joke names when I was, there's a point where you had to go in a restaurant or pub, you had to write down your name. They'd write down, I used to give them joke names. That's a way of offsetting it and things like that. But I think the bastards are up to something. I don't know what it is, but I look at things like what's going on in the Middle East. I look at things like why they're building a data center under the White House, what's going on under the Children's Hospital in Dublin. BAM, who are building that, and the most expensive building in the world, are also heavily involved in building all the data centers in Ireland. That's their main business. I don't know, but I think people like us in the tribe, we'll be ready for it when it happens. So we'll have an advantage of not being sucked dry by it, the perniciousness of it. But good question. We have to be always on the guard from now on. The world that we live in and the kind of psychopaths that are running it, we have to be always be watching them. That's the way I feel about it. So great question. And no, COVID was the opening act, I think.
Next question is from Janine, and she sort of segues into that question because she says things are getting a bit crazy these days. What do you recommend for keeping your feet on the ground?
Well, ignore it as best you can. I mean, we had a by-election here in Ireland, and I ignored it completely. I didn't. I found out just something popped up on my feed to show the results of one place. And that was like all. I didn't look at it. I didn't get involved in it. Keeping your feet on the ground is to basically ignore the black magic of broadcast media. Just ignore it and be creative. And here's an important one. Any plans you have in life right now, you're going to get married, you're going to have kids, you're planning to open a business, proceed. Proceed. Don't be saying to yourself, what's the point? If AI is going to screw the world up or they're going to screw the world up, proceed. Spite them. I made a vlog recently about this. Live a good life and live the life that you want on your terms despite them. I'm a firm believer that if a lot of us will do this, we will change reality, for us at least. And don't be an evangelist. Don't think that you have to save others or help others. You just forge forward and do your thing and live a good life regardless. That's how you keep your feet on the ground. And don't succumb to their constant negativity because they want that.
Next question, Thomas, is from, it's about across the water. I hadn't heard about this. Ronan asks, do you think that there were dark forces at work when the state of Florida became overrun with so many Burmese pythons within a few short years?
It's not only Florida; it's now in Alabama. They're hunting alligators up the swamps of Louisiana and Alabama now, and they're growing to enormous size. And it's not just Burmese pythons. There's been anacondas have been seen as well in the swamps around the Gulf Coast part of Alabama. Well, the story is, right, that these snakes all belong to gangs. It was a status symbol in a gang, like in a criminal gang, to have these snakes as a status symbol. And a lot of them just got fed up taking care of them. And so and also people had regular pets of them as well. These things, when they get so big, they're expensive to keep as well. So they would just throw them in the Everglades. So, but There's another aspect here, auguries. Okay, you could say it was done on purpose. Like, I don't think so. But we also know that they go on about biodiversity and they ignore it all the time. I think I'd be more inclined to look at that as an augury. Now, what does a boa constrictor or any kind of constrictor do? It kills by strangulation or asphyxiating its prey. It sneaks up on them, and these things an anaconda, these things can move unbelievably fast when they have to. I've seen frightening videos where they set traps for them in like South America, and they put a live chicken in a kind of a cage beside a swamp, and this thing that'd be the length of this room would come flying out at like 100 miles an hour. So they're quite terrifying creatures in terms of how they prey. So, and also you have like the anaconda. I believe they have teeth that go backwards. So once they bite on you, there's no escape. And they smile. They're frightening. Just before they strike, they smile. It's the most, I mean, I know it's an animal doing its nature, but there's just something about that smirk it makes before it strikes. Think of the anaconda as an augury, right? Symbolically, let's break it down. They could represent the wires of the control grid, the wires of the internet carrying as it's spreading, carrying all the AI data, the digital prison that's no escape, that's constricting us. You know, I would go to the old Greco-Roman concept of looking at the symbolism and apply it as an augury. But it definitely, it's highly symbolic. It's quite frightening. I wouldn't like to be. I mean, these things are hunting alligators, and an alligator's not easy to take down. But if I was like, you wouldn't catch me swimming in that part of the world now. Not on the sea, maybe, but they'll even hunt on the sea. They'll even go attacking people while swimming. So I would say that I'd be more inclined to see it as an augury for the control grid. The tightening, the constriction, and the slithering, and the sneakiness of the AI surveillance system.
Next question, Thomas, is from Peter Kennedy, and he asks, "What is your opinion on cacodemons? Do they actually influence those possessed by them to go out of their way to deliberately annoy others?"
Yeah, totally, 100%. Because it's an energy harvesting thing, and not only just annoy, but also to procure energy through things like insulting and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. It's that's exactly what it is. I agree 100% with that. Is it Patrick? Yeah.
Patrick Kennedy.
Yeah,
Peter Kennedy.
Peter, I agree with that. Yeah, you answered your own question basically. Yeah, that's what it is.
Next one is the Rock 57. He asks, are megalithic sites been turned on in some way these days? Are they part of the awakening that seems to be going on?
Yeah, I see. You have to be careful with the megalithic sites. There's an assumption to be made that they're all good. Well, some of them are bad. I've been to them. The Roll Right Stones in England has a particularly bad energy. And that's been a place that's been used for definite actual black magic murders that have actually been documented in recent decades. And I was in a place in Sardinia where the guy said, only Satanists, the Italian guy said, only Satanists go up there these days. And I got up there and there was all bones all over the place, and I had a terrible psychic attack at the place. So when you say activated, yeah, I mean, there definitely is something going on. But all you have to do is look at the discovery under the pyramids in Egypt. I know that technology was able to penetrate the ground, but what's under the pyramids in Egypt? Did it turn itself on somehow, wanting to be found, wanting to be discovered? So I think I've been at megaliths that felt dead, felt completely dead, nothing, like they were just stones. I've been at ones that felt remarkably alive. And you can tell things by, you can tell the ones that are alive, because if there's a standing stone in a field and you have livestock like cows and sheep going around it, or getting up next to it, or even rubbing against it, they are sensing something that's switched on. But what role they play in the way the world is today, I don't know. I mean, it is possible. I mean, I'm open-minded to everything, but it would just be like, wouldn't it be the real kind of Quatermass Nigel Neal kind of thing. You know, even the children of the stones, the thing came down from above onto the ritual from the sky. And maybe they were. I mean, it's got to the point now where I actually think a lot of these megaliths, not all of them, like the stone circles and some others, they always seem to orientate upwards vertically. You know, you get a sensation that it's casting something upwards. So if they're activated, maybe they're activated by some astrological or astronomical thing that happens. But yeah, I mean, I'd also be watching the kind of people hang around them. They're definitely capable of Renfielding people. I've seen that firsthand, getting people to act strange. So I think I think the best thing to do would be find the nearest megalithic site to you. And remember, if you live in North America, there's megalithic sites there too. And become familiar with the site and notice behaviour. I've been noticing a lot of bad behaviour at Irish megalithic sites lately. People doing stupid things like throwing fruit and vegetables and flowers into burial mounds and stuff, like our chambers. And, you know, so that's kind of Renfielding. So maybe, see, you have to be careful. We don't know if they were built by the good guys or the bad guys. They're still a blank canvas. So the New Agers tend to think they're all wonderful, but I know for a fact that some of them are not. So, but yeah, it's one of those things we have to keep an eye on. That's what I'd say.
Next question is from Bill, and he says, "Hi Thomas, what is your opinion on Hermeticism and the book of Kabbalion with its 7 Hermetic principles?" Yeah,
the Kabbalion. Yeah, I'm not an expert on it, to be honest with you. You know, it was one of those things I'd looked at, and you know, I'm the kind of person that it's like a kind of a school of occultism or magic. I'm like that. It's like me with art. I might like one style of painting, but I might not like another style of painting, and it didn't do anything for me specifically. It wasn't my thing, but in terms of the actual work put into it, it's definitely a very well, from what I can gather, a very well developed school of occultism. And if it works for you, go with it. It just nothing wrong with it. It'd be just like I said, like a taste in music or a taste in art. It wasn't for me. Put it that way.
Next question is from Raul Edu33, and he asks, Thomas, who or whom will inherit your book collection?
Oh, I don't know. I was looking at some old witchcraft books cursing books I have from Scotland. I don't know. I'd hate to see them all end up in Oxfam or somewhere like that. I'd love to set up a library or something like that and donate them all. I wish Ireland had a witchcraft or an occult museum like they have in England and in Boscastle in Cornwall. I did a talk there a good few years ago now, and they have a fantastic facility down there. Like, I wish there was an Irish museum of, you know, curiosities and magic and folklore, but that's what I want to do. But you know, I hope to still have 30 or 40 years left, so I'm not going to worry about it just yet. But it's something I have thought about. Yeah, I would like a foundation or something set up that would put them in a place and protect them, so other people could use them, that kind of thing.
Next question is from Conan Barbarian, and he asks, as with any black magic spell, it seems one must constantly sacrifice more and more to not have it backfire in a way, just like at the end of the Aztecs. Is the gig perhaps up with the powerful, and how would we be able to determine it?
Yeah, that's a great point. When you get into the hardcore stuff like that with animal sacrifices and stuff, or human sacrifices, it becomes almost like a medication of a way for the society. The Aztecs were basically doing it because they'd run their course as a society. They were also a kind of a fraudulent society too, because remember, they didn't build the pyramids of the sun in Mexico City. That was a previous culture that built all that stuff. So they were just kind of nesting upon it. And the Aztecs, now here's another one, no one really talked about this. The Aztecs may have been bound to a curse that the actual real builders of the Pyramid of the Sun left wired into, top of a megalith being active, left in that. So when the Aztecs moved there, they started basically killing themselves and killing their prisoners and stuff until it destroyed them. But yeah, they definitely cursed themselves. That's what the Spanish were. What was it? 500 conquistadors took down an entire empire, and it wasn't just all through disease and everything. They actually were killing them with dogs and stuff like that, hunting them with wolfhounds and this kind of thing. The Aztecs met a very grisly end, and then the Mayans and other groups joined in against them. Yeah, absolutely. Now, how does that pertain to the ones today? You see, you know me. I'm not Mr. Negative, but I'm not Mr. False Positive. I don't see any signs of the elites, whatever you want to call them, losing their mojo, losing their magic, and a falling apart for them. I don't see it yet, but yeah, it will happen. It'll definitely happen. What they're doing. The irony is with things like AI, what they're doing is they're hastening their own annihilation. That's what they're really happening. So the more pernicious they get, the faster they go, the more they bring themselves towards their own self-annihilation.
Next question is from Aurora Storm 9842, and he asks, Thomas, what is your opinion of Project Bluebeam and the fake alien invasion, and was Orson Welles the beta test then in the 40s?
Project Blue, when I first started getting into conspiracies, this is now back in the 80s, when conspiracy was kind of considered cool, believe it or not. It wasn't until 9/11 that they made it all look like it was kooky. Until that point, it was very similar to historical what-ifs. And me and my friends used to always talk about things like the JFK assassination and stuff like that. And I don't remember if we used the term Project Bluebeam, but I do remember the concept that they would probably use a fake alien invasion or a fake religion. Now, the concept of the Project Bluebeam thing really only comes from one person. It was a woman who worked with Wernher von Braun. And she said that he had told her this on his deathbed, that they would have false alien invasions. And it's kind of been built up a lot on that, but there really isn't much else about to do with it. Now, they've been using a kind of Project Bluebeam all along, and that was the Americans pretending that they had alien technology during the Cold War. A lot of this had to do with when the Sputnik was launched. It was around the same time that the Russians, the Soviets, had detonated a hydrogen bomb. And here were Americans terrified, thinking they were the kings of the world. And a Soviet spaceship was flying over their skies every night. It made them very neurotic. And that's what Roswell, I think, was about, a false flag, crashed alien saucer. And they've been running that psyop to the present. I think the opportunity, the Overton window to run that Bluebeam is probably now past. There's a lot. I think they're very surprised, as am I, that the general public's response to all these UFO leaks, and apparently President Trump's going to make a new one, is like, nah, which is very surprising to me. It's not like, oh my God, the aliens are here. People have been very kind of like, apathetic to the whole thing. So I don't think even if they launched it, it would work. I think people would ignore it. But I do think they would try something with religion. Like I could see something like if the United States in the deep south, the Bible Belt, started really turning against the Israeli thing, AIPAC and all that. I could see something like, a big image of Jesus being projected over Mississippi or something like that to try and, I could definitely see that. The CIA tried to do that when Cuba fell to communism under Castro. They brought a submarine into Havana Harbor and tried to project a gigantic picture of the Virgin Mary on the clouds to try and get the Cubans to turn against their people. turn against their leaders, but apparently something happened, like they couldn't produce enough power to actually project the image or something like that. So they've tried things like that in the past. Yeah, I think I'd be more like now inclined that they're not going to go with the alien stuff. They're probably going to go with some kind of religious event. That's the one I'd be watching out for.
Next question in, Thomas, is from Mar 988, and the question is, excuse me, hi Thomas, are the Freemasons involved in satanic ritual abuse? And if so, do you think it could be happening within Dublin?
I think there are definitely Freemasonic lodges that are covering up for paedophile rings. That's been shown. That's what Dunblane in Scotland was all about, the school shooting. And that's, if you go into that rabbit hole, the Dunblane school shooting in Scotland, you will get absolute confirmation that there's certain lodges that are involved in protecting child abuse rings. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Now, does that mean that every lodges or all Freemasons are? No, I think the vast majority of Freemasons are just like nerds. They're like upstarts. They're like social climbers. They're just like they think it's a way of them to make money and get business and get jobs and things like that. Now, we do know the Freemasons, particularly in Scotland and in Northern Ireland, heavily involved in the police. So if one of the Lodge brothers or several Lodge brothers were caught doing, running a non-string or something like that, they wouldn't investigate it. You should be more worried about that than anything else. It's not satanic. They're just they're just perverts, and they're perverts who use their membership, being a widow's son, to actually get away with it. So it's much more kind of prosaic than saying, it's this, that, and the other. But there's been, if you have anything funny to do with that, look to two things: the Jesuits or the Freemasons. And it's usually a case of coppers covering up for members who are involved in noncery.
Next question, Thomas. It's from Mr. Shin, and he asks, hello, Mr. Sheridan. I visited Caldra Cemetery recently, but know little about it. What's your knowledge of this site?
What cemetery?
Caldra Cemetery. Caldoragh. Caldra Cemetery.
Where's that?
Doesn't say.
Can you clarify where that is, where it's located, and we'll answer the question. I think I know where you might be talking about, but I don't call it that name.
Okay, we can come back to it later anyway.
Come back to me later. Yeah. Put down the location in the comments of where it is.
Next one is from Rayo Flight, and he asks, Thomas, have you looked into reserve speech, David Oates? Reserve speech, David Oates?
No, that's a new one for me, sorry.
Yeah. This might be an easier one here. This is a nice nature question. This is coming in from Niall also. So with the return of the crane, there is much more spruce in Ireland versus the last time it was here. I am musing on the possibility of a new Ohm letter that represents the 8-toothed spruce bark beetle. The idea of a Trojan spruce for land to become forestry and primordial native trees to then take over. Thoughts on this and adapting Ohm for modern day?
I think it's a great idea. I think that's magic like paganism has to keep up with the times. And I think that's a super idea. Yeah, I'd go for it. Nice one. Yeah, I'd go for that.
The other one, this is one on Enoch Burke. What do you think of Enoch Burke being sacked by the school? And what will it mean going forward for the trans agenda?
Well, I don't want to get too heavy into that. I think it's a very sad story. I think the whole thing is very sad. I think a young guy spending his time in prison that long, it's just tragic. The whole thing is a mess. I don't think there's any winners in it. And I wish him the best of luck in his life, and I hope he gets his life back together. But when I think about the whole thing with Enoch Burke, it just makes me terribly sad. It just, on every level, it makes me terribly sad. And will it affect? Well, that kind of the agenda's kind of wavering in general, I think, anyway. So I think He's not relevant to it. It was always going to be fleeting. Look, all the politicians who took their pronouns out of their bios, and you don't see the pronouns in the bios of Lincoln and things like that like you used to, which is compounds kind of the tragedy of Enoch Burke a little more when you think about it, because it was burning itself out anyway. But all I can say is I wish the man well, and I hope he maybe leave Ireland and build a life from it in another country or something like that. It's just a sad story, I think.
Different topic now from Pauline. She's asking about karma. She says, does the idea of karma not get rid of any compassion towards someone's situation? If you believe that the reason someone is being tortured is because they were a bad person in a previous life, it may remove or reduce some people's empathy towards them. Yeah, I totally agree, and you should never look on it that way. You also have a similar thing in Scientology with SP is suppressed people, and they're all paying. They say they're paying for karma for previous behavior. You get it in even religions like Mormonism and stuff like that. No, I disagree with that. It's not for us to judge if people are paying for bad karma. It doesn't really work the way the New Agers. It's much more complex. Karma is a much more complex system in the Vedic religion than just, what you do in this life determines what you'll be in the next life. And you will find it plays a lot into the caste system. It's more like if you were say a lower caste in this life and you did good works, you'll probably be born in a better caste and have better opportunities in life in the next life. It's more to do with that. But yeah, it's an awful thing when you say so. You look at someone like in a wheelchair and say, oh, he's paying for his bad karma. It's dehumanizing and lacks compassion. You're completely right. No one should ever do that. This is a grammatical one from Rupert. He asks, what's the difference between daemon, D-A-E-M-O-N, and demon, D-E-M-O-N? Yeah, daemon is the D-A-I is the Greek spelling, daimon. And it represents, basically, it's also known as the genius, like G-E-N-I-U-S. It's the unspoken voice inside you, the subconscious mind that knows all and sees all, and where you get your hunches from, your eureka moments. It's the hidden voice inside, the inner voice, the other function of you inside you, the subconscious architecture. Now that was kind of corrupted by Christianity, who don't believe in you have two poles of cognition, your conscious and your subconscious mind. They only believe that you have your conscious mind and your spirit. And there's a belief built up in the Middle Ages that if you believe that you had a subconscious self, that was a demon inside you talking to you and telling you lies. And they basically took the term daimon, the Greek term for the subconscious individual, and corrupted it and said it was demon. I think the spelling with the D-E-M-O-N is the French. It's the French phonetic spelling of the original Greek one. So the difference is it's semantics. It's not. It doesn't denote anything other than sort of religious prejudice, like when they called it a demon. The next one is from Naz. He asks, is famine a threat we will see this year or into next? Famine? Famine. Well, probably won't happen in the West, but it's a real possibility in Africa and the developing world, where they're heavily dependent on fertilizer because of the condition of their soil. I mean, India and Pakistan are extremely dependent on fertilizer, and so is China. Now, will it? Yeah, it's definitely a possibility, especially if like the spreading conflicts happen, which was no guarantee they will or they won't. There's probably several famines going on in the world right now somewhere. We just don't hear about them because we don't have the likes of Bob Geldof making a career out of it as much as they used to. That was actually a business at one time, which is kind of a black magic in itself, using a famine to keep your profile going and things like that. But
yeah, it's a possibility. Will it happen? Part of me is saying it won't happen, and neither will there be fuel shortages. There's a lot of negative sort of hexes being put into the media for people to hex themselves. So time will tell, but I personally don't feel it's going to affect the West.
Next one from Niall. He asks, on the tradition of household spirits, what are your thoughts on the Irish tradition, and is it similar to the Norse?
Similar to the
Norse?
Yeah, of the ancestral home spirit, like the tomte and things like that. Yeah, there are leprechauns. I can't think of the name right now, but there are ancestral spirits that are in Irish folklore that reside in farms and in houses. And just like the Nordic version, you were supposed to like cherish them and look after them. Generally on farms, they lived in stables or in barns. And they would do, in the Irish tradition, they would do favours, like they would do the bridle on horses. So if you came in the morning and the horse's braiding was all done, that they used to say that was the fairy, the she that was connected to the household, and it was protective. Yeah, again, Christianity made this stuff all sound bad, but it's a much bigger thing in the Nordic world. It's a very, in a place like Denmark and stuff like that, it's a big deal, parts of Germany. But yeah, if you have a house that you feel comfortable in, and you feel happy and safe in that home, you will generate this. It could be egregoric. You will generate this kind of feeling inside it, and maybe the ancestral spirit is in a kind of an egregoric version of a happy home or a happy family. But the Irish thing is, there's a lot of crossover between the two traditions. William Butler Yeats had a theory that the leprechauns came with the Vikings because they're miners. They're miners, and there's no Irish folk tradition of a fairy that does mining. In his case, he's a gold miner or a gold speculator. So there's a very interesting theory that they came with the Vikings. But yeah, the ancestral spirit thing, yeah, it's pretty much similar, and you find it's pretty similar in Slavic and other cultures as well. There's even like household and domestic jinn within the Arab world too, like a jinn that lives in a friendly jinn. And there's also, you can have an entity living in a building that may not be anything, but you should also not disturb it because it might lead to a poltergeist activity or something. I have a distinct memory of seeing this black shadow that was always in the corner of this building, and it should have never been there. And it was I was convinced after a while that it was in the corner of the building. It was an entity that would show up under moonlight and things like that. And that's also one of the theories that why people in Northern Europe lived in round houses, because there was no corner for some entity to nest inside it. But yeah, the two traditions are almost identical, but it's not as well developed in Ireland as in Scandinavia.
The next question is, have you ever explored anything along the lines of practical alchemy?
Yeah, kind of, through electronics. I did take a kind of an interest in it, but I've never done any experiments. But I remember learning about electronic components kind of made me realize there definitely is something to this. Now, there was a guy in Belfast who was using his feces. This is a true story. It came out in the court. He was using his feces to create an alchemical experiment, and he blew up his apartment building with his own turds. And if you dig around on the internet, you'll find this out. And the judge was they presented the whole alchem in order to show that he didn't, because it was Northern Ireland, they thought it was a terrorist thing, so they took it very seriously. So the poor guy had to present all his alchemical papers, this is why you keep documents, in his court case, and he got off with a small fine. But the judge was saying, this is one of the most amazing cases I've ever sat in all my career. And he goes, I can't believe this guy made an alchemical. And the judge even said, like, yeah, he made. So whatever he was trying to transmute with his own feces, it blew up and blew the wall off an apartment building. Look it up, but it's alchemy is real. Well, I mean, it's a precursor of chemistry. Now, Robert Boyle, who's probably Ireland's most famous scientist, he was the founder of chemistry. He was an alchemist before then. So we have a long tradition of alchemy here in Ireland too.
Next question, Thomas, is from Lorcan Cook. I think it's about a new publication. Hey, Thomas, have you come across The Sphere Network by Patrick Jackson? Some very interesting information and theories.
No, I haven't heard about it. What's it called again?
The Sphere Network by Patrick Jackson.
No, this isn't. I haven't heard about this one. That's a new one for me. But yeah, any information, just like put a link in the comments or something there, so we can go have a look at it.
I'm actually reading it myself, and it's a good one. It's about UFOs.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so Michael here said that he's read it. So he said it's very good. So now you give me something to check out. So thank you, both of you.
Next question, Thomas, is from Lee 2. He says, hello, Thomas. What's your opinion on George G. Gurdjieff? I discovered his work recently, and he taught that almost all of humanity live in a, quote, waking sleep, unquote. I thought NPC. Is it worth becoming familiar with his overall body of work?
No, but he's fascinating. Main reason, he tends to have a bit of a cult following. And the whole thing of organic portals was kind of the beginning of the NPC kind of consciousness. He was the one to promote out there that people didn't have souls. But a lot of the people who end up following him developed this kind of like, they're very judge. They judge people in heart. But his work's interesting. But there's also an interesting theory that his final documents, and if he did this, he's like the ultimate like edgelord, was that he wrote a paper at the end of his life, basically saying that everything he ever thought was bullshit. He made it all up, and it was part of the experiment. Was that your whole world? It's like that. It was like the tarot card in the tarot. Everything falls apart, and if this is true, and Gurdjieff did that deliberately, then he's probably one of the most greatest spiritual leaders of all time, because you bring someone up and you put them through all this stuff and you give them all, and they believe it and they hold on to it, and then you say to them, I only all made it up. It causes them to collapse. And what do they have to do then? They have to take responsibility for their own asses and go on instead of following gurus. And that's the theory of what Gurdjieff did at the end. Now, if that's true or not, but someone who I know who followed his work for years said, oh yeah, his whole basic Gurdjieff thing was to destroy your hopes at the end, so you would actually work on your own spiritual development rather than going around quoting. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in Gurdjieff. There's no doubt about that. And Opesky as well.
There's a question from Mar. Actually, one contributor said the stream, it dropped during your answer for this. If you want maybe give a short one again, I don't know.
Yeah.
But the question was, are Freemasons involved in SRA in Dublin? For example, the Dalkey House of Horrors. And could this be why other murderers are covered up like Raynard Murray?
Yeah, I think so. I think, yeah. I'm not going to say yes, definitely, but it's a possibility and it's highly likely. When any kind of, like, and also don't only think Masons, but think Jesuits as well. Remember, there was that famous case of that young boy in Dublin who was murdered in a Jesuit black magic ritual. I think it was in Walkinstown back in the 70s, where he was found crucified upside down in the parents' attic. And the guy who did it was basically served a short time in prison and lived the rest of his life as basically a Jesuit superstar. So don't only get caught up in, there's a lot of funny business on the other side as well. But yes, the answer to that is yes.
Next question is from Aurora. She asks, do you know the impact of strangelets being produced in CERN? So this goes back to the other answer as well. As a byproduct of its processes, do you think as mini black holes they have distorted reality? Yeah, possibly, yeah. I mean, there's loads of things that indicate that things started getting weird after CERN was switched on.
And that's when things like the Mandela effects, certainly mini black holes. Now remember, black holes are still theoretical. You know, they're still theoretical because what they do is they were basically invented as a means of explaining where where the energy in the universe goes to die, because there was no energy dissipation within the universe, and although they presented increasingly good evidence of black holes, they're still theoretical. You have to remember that. Like, you know, Stephen Hawkins, when he wasn't on Epstein's Island, he basically devoted his whole career to enforcing this belief, almost religious belief, in black holes. But they're still theoretical. So, you know, we're using language of things. Yeah, there could be some kind of effect, but I always like, they're probably using convenient language, mini black holes, but it could be something else.
Yeah, just to announce it, we have been having trouble with the internet here, so could we just apologise for the poor internet connection and the stream dropping? It was totally out of our control, but it seems to be a bit better now. So we have opened the questions up to all, and we'll be posting a full video tomorrow on the channel.
Yeah, this is recorded with a separate camera outside the stream, so there'll be a HD video of this tomorrow. So, if we're dropping out now, don't worry about it. It's all the recording going to be perfect. There's the internet. I might be being affected today by the weather or something. It's I don't know. My internet hasn't been good either. So it's traveling across the country. I don't know why. So it might be the solar flare or something. I don't know.
Next question is from Barry Thomas. He asks, have people who took the needlecraft been injected with a parasite that controls their nervous system, like the kind of parasite that takes over an ant colony?
Yeah, toxoplasmosis, I think it's called. Well, that was the number one reason that I said they were not going to put that thing inside me, because you have these zombified, like you have these bizarre parasites, like fluke worms, that live on cow turds in the field, and ants eat the turds because they're very nutritionally rich, because they're just grass basically. So it's digested grass, and these fluke get inside the ant. They hollow. It's very like nature's like. This is kind of like, it's just one of these things you want when you first hear about it. It hollows the ant or whatever the insect is out, and then like the Cylons. You remember the Cylon raiders in Battlestar Galactica? There was a Cylon raider, was kind of like a kind of a biological creature in the middle who was wired into the spaceship. They become like that. They wire themselves into the into the insect's nervous system, and they drive around the field looking for a cow. So when they see a cow, and they like a robot, they drive the dead ant's shell husk over to the cow, so the cow will eat the grass with the fluke inside it, and it begins to cycle all over again. Now, there's no way in hell that I could see that natural selection would think that one up. It's one of those things like, how, no matter how you had trillions of years, I don't see how nature could have, that thing has been planned and created and engineered somehow. And this is what makes me think this reality in this world we live in is a far more complex and different place than we're to believe. Now, that was the main reason I didn't take the needlecraft, because I didn't. But I can tell you something. I know people who've had just one needlecraft and their personality has changed. And I used to think that you had to get the booster for them to get the full effect. Like that was almost like the one that, like it was the activator, the catalyst. But it turns out now that the boosters were just the unsold needlecraft, the ones they overproduced, and they made up the story of you have to get a booster, and the booster was just another marketing ploy to sell off the rubbish that didn't sell the first time. So I know I know people that have changed drastically from one needlecraft. I don't even know them anymore, and sometimes it feels like there's something inside them driving them. And a lot of them seem to have Trump derangement syndrome, which is a really weird one. Why would an injection make you have TDS? But it's not. It's been commonly reported. No, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with these people, but we're all noticing things that are just not right. the person that's in there has changed, and it does seem like something is running them. But that was the main reason I said no. I didn't want. I was suspicious they were up to something like that. Especially the way they rolled out the 5G during the. Remember how they rolled out the 5G during where I live up in Sligo? Literally, there was a convoys of trucks arriving in the village, and they were staying in the local hotel overnight, and they went up into the remote parts of the mountains, like where there's only just deer and there's no wild deer. There's nothing else up there other than animals, and they were installing on poles up there. I don't know why. They had like hiking equipment. They had like gear. I think they even hired fellas who do like mountaineering and stuff like that to actually get them to stick these 5G things on the side of a cliff. So, and that happened just before the needlecraft was rolled out. Before they made it very, very commonly available after they gave it to the elderly ones. But yeah, I do think there could be something like that. I don't know what the long-term repercussions are, but I can't deny that it's changed people. I know they had it.
There's another question related to needlecraft from John 2342. He asks, some people who've studied the topic believe the souls of some of the people who took the needlecraft and died afterwards are now trapped within the earth sphere. What's your opinion? Well,
we're going in a very heavy place here now, and I don't want to hurt people's feelings. I've had someone not fall out with me, but had people got angry when I look. I don't know for sure. It's just the theory, okay? So don't take my word as fact, okay? But as a pagan, only as a pagan, you need your DNA intact. That's your ancestral body to move on, to reincarnate, okay? But I could be full of shit. I could be wrong, okay? So I'm not trying to hurt upset people or upset people. But, buyer beware. That's just how it is. Buyer beware. And, more than anything else, when the needlecraft and the whole lockdown first started, beyond all the things I was pissed off about, like my civil liberties being taken away, and, football being played in empty stadiums, the ridiculous things like that, it was this belief that I was somehow there was a spiritual assault upon humanity happening. That's what I felt. And that could well be a part of it. But that's all I'm saying about it, because I don't want to hurt people's feelings or frighten people. I'm not going to go there. Because I don't know for certain.
Well, Thomas, we have loads of questions still coming in, and we're just coming up to 8 o'clock. So we'll just keep going on for another while. So Mab has another question. She asks, which crystal for protection is good for these crazy times?
White quartz. You can find it anywhere. But don't buy the stuff from the New Age shop that's been polished, because that's destroyed. It has shock inside it. And it's also been dynamited out of mountains and stuff like that. Because remember, white quartz crystals is used in radio. It vibrates at an incredible level. And it's used to tune in radio frequencies, but none of it's been shocked. If it's been, mined and then, cleaned up, go to the beach. There's tons of it around where I live in Sligo, just lying around the mountains. You will find it's probably the most abundant, crystal on earth. And you'll find it somewhere. Even one on a beach that's washed up, if it's been polished by the sea, that's fine. It hasn't suffered shock. But the ideal one is I've got a huge one at home that literally I pulled out of a bog. So it's probably been down in the bog there for thousands and thousands of years. And it's shaped like a heart. And it's just, you just hold it, it feels remarkable. But you should, white crystal is very important. And it's one you don't have to buy. It's everywhere. If you look around, you'll find it. Go to a mountainous area, go to the beach, and I'll guarantee you'll find even a small amount. Use that.
Slightly different topic now, Thomas. Lorcan asks, what's your feeling on remote viewing? Some of the more well-known names in it, like Joe McGonigal and the Monroe Institute. Yeah,
definitely. The Monroe Institute, that work was taken over by the Gateway process. The CIA and DARPA's experiments into remote viewing. It's real. It absolutely has been categorically proven. There's some people online who've done remote viewing experiments, and they got like literally 10 out of 10 on some of the stuff they've done. One guy, I've done remote viewing accidentally in a lot of my artwork and stuff like that. You know, this kind of thing. It's happened to me. But whether it's you projecting into the future, or whether you're using a demon you're utilizing a demon, or you're moving, you don't know it, or you're moving your own consciousness out into space-time, it's absolutely real. It's absolutely true. And it's undeniable at this point. It's real. But there are people who are good at it. It's like anything. There are people who have a genuine talent for it, and then there's bullshitters. Again, just be careful with who you're dealing with.
Next question is sort of related. It's on a new area of tech that Donatella asks, what's your opinion on real old tech like near unlimited energy, gravitic control, etc.?
What kind of unlimited energy?
It just says near unlimited energy or gravitic control, etc.
You see, the thing is with unlimited energy, they say free energy. That doesn't exist. The universe doesn't work like that. Energy doesn't come out of nowhere. Theoretically, completely possible. Theoretically, but I haven't seen any. The way we're creating energy in terms of things like power, you think like powering cities and stuff like that. It's pretty intense, burning fossil fuels and things like that. Now, energy can be created from sunshine, which is kind of the nearest thing we have to a kind of we're getting better at that. We're actually, it's one thing to produce electricity from, but it's another thing to create ampage and wattage. I could make something probably with a few things around here that I would put outside in the sun with a voltmeter. It would produce volts. But what can I do with that? It doesn't have load. It doesn't have a load. It doesn't have ampage in it. But so that's always been the problem, is to actually create energy with heavy load. The way that would probably work, and this might have something to do with the megaliths and also to do with magic, is that we reduce our notion of the actual end product of energy. So, for instance, we think of energy as a heavy end product, but as we're reducing our own load on it. So, for instance, look how little electricity, say, LEDs use compared to an incandescent light bulb, how much less they use. So, if we miniaturize or we make more efficient the user end of energy, then it becomes more akin to something that's near free. But then again, there's a commercial thing in that as well, because they can't put a meter on it. So we're always going to be battling with that. But I absolutely know for a fact that the megaliths, they were using things like paramagnetic and diamagnetic energy for healing. See, we have a very distorted view of energy. We always think in terms of lighting and cooking and transport. But at the megalithic sites, they were using it for healing. That's been shown. And back to crystals again, a lot of stones have quartz in them, So there was a kind of an amplification element going on with them as well. And also a kind of a radio frequency thing. But yeah, there's no such thing as free energy. But what there is, you look at, it's the way energy is used. You look at the way an oak tree can grow just from photosynthesis. And this colossal amount of wood can live for a couple of hundred years. But that's almost like, when you think about it, that's very close to like literally unlimited energy. When you see something like, so nature has kind of already perfected it in many ways, but we haven't really emulated it. One of the prices we paid for like Christianity, which has made us kind of like dependent on this kind of like centralized notion of everything.
Question from Ronan. This one's about blood types. Ronan asks, why are all the aristocrats and royal families, the kings and queens, prime ministers, American presidents, why are they all rhesus negative, mostly O negative blood types.
Is that true, or is that just the kind of a thing that goes around? I hear that that's been knocking around for years, but I've never heard any. I've never seen any hardcore proof that they're all, rhesus negative. Also, we do know they're obsessed with blood in bloodlines and all that. So there's they understand blood sorcery more than anyone. They understand that blood is a form of there's a great magical power in blood. But I don't know if that's true. I think that's just something that just developed and has been taken on as a fact. But I mean, they don't make just like the birth of their children. They hide the birth of the royal children. Back to the topic at hand, they hide the birth of the royal children because they don't want anyone to know, astrologers to know, when the child was actually born. Do you remember when Kate Middleton came out of hospital with the current baby king? Everyone was saying, "Where's her bump?" He was born weeks earlier, and they went into the hospital for this farce delivery. And that's they from the time of John Dee doing 007 Queen Elizabeth's the horoscope, that has been a constant with royalty. They don't tell you when they're really born, and so do a lot of wealthy individuals as well, because they can. You can say, well, they can find opportunistic times in your future in which to assassinate you or destroy you. There's a story that Robert the Bruce murdered his rival on the altar before he became like the Guardian of Scotland, because he knew the guy's astrology. So this is a story. Robert the Bruce was a bit of an occultist. While he utilized it, but they have a whole of the way of doing that stuff. But they definitely know there's something in there is something in blood. That's why they knock you out when you get a transfusion, because you got two energy forces battling inside your body for dominance. It would drive you insane if you weren't knocked out. But they're the ultimate ones obsessed with blood sorcery. But whether they're all rhesus negative, I just think that's more of a story than it could be true. But I haven't seen. They'll never tell you their blood type because it's part of the mystique of hiding it.
Next question is from Alison, and she asks, Thomas, what are your thoughts on Madame Helena Petrovna Blavatsky?
I don't know about Blavatsky. The Secret Doctrine. It's kind of unreadable, the book. I remember, there's a chap I was working years ago, and he was a theosophist, and he was raving about the Secret Doctrine. And I found the book really difficult to read. It was all like, who she wrote exactly like? Jeffrey Epstein. It was all the lack of grammar and run-on sentences. It was really weird how she wrote. She wrote just like Epstein. No lack of punctuation and grammar, run-on sentences. And so I was like, yeah, it's interesting. Her profile and her effect on the occult is enormous. You can't take that away from her. She's up there with Steiner and all this. She's up there with Crowley and the rest of them. However, her travels into the East, I don't know how true they are, if she made those stories up or not. But no, I couldn't really get into her stuff, to be honest with you. I liked Steiner stuff, but I couldn't really get into her. I found the books really difficult to read. That was my biggest issue.
Next question is from Goggs. He asks Thomas, the Highland seers of the 17th century suggested their visions of the second sight came from the fairies and often ran in families and was linked to place. Do you have some knowledge of second sight? And if indeed the fairies are potentially at least partly responsible? Thanks, from Gordon in Scotland. Yeah, that's the cunning folk, the cunning men. They used fairies. Oberon was a common Oberon, the king of the fairies. He's mentioned in Midsummer's Night, Shakespeare's A Midsummer's Night Dream, King Oberon, the king of the fairies, and he's often drawn like a genie in a bottle. He looks like the genie, and the Disney cartoon genie. He looks like that when he's often drawn. Very interesting. Second sight. Yeah, that you don't hear that term much anymore. It's kind of gone out of vogue. It's really,
parapsychology kind of thing. It's basically seeing the future. But yeah, the fairy thing was definitely a big part of the cunning folk thing. Oberon was utilized as the medium to bring forth secrets. So it's classic demonology. And again, it's kind of like the other thing. Are they utilizing an entity to procure this information, either knowingly or unknowingly, or are they transferring their own subconscious mind out of current present space time? But yeah, they did. Yeah, they used. That's absolutely completely true about the cunning folk and fairies and second sight.
Question from Monopad. He asks, re your artwork / creative energy. Your calendars were great. I used to buy them for friends. Do you have any plans to produce them again?
Yeah, I think I'm not doing this year. I'll definitely, there'll be more drawings in the next one but definitely, I think I just didn't have enough paintings and I didn't want to be recycling stuff I'd already used. But I definitely will be, bringing another one out. Thanks very much. I'm glad you liked it. But I think this Christmas there'll definitely be a new calendar coming out.
Next question is from M. Locke. He asks you, Thomas, how do you recharge your batteries? So much of what you're interested in is dark, and it can really pull you down.
You mean my internal battery? Well, yeah. It's not. To me, it's not dark. To me, it's just information. I know that sounds weird, but it's just information to me. Whether that comes from me not being a Christian, where I don't see it as dark. I see it as information. Now, does it affect me? It has. When I wrote the book when the book on the psychopaths came out, I got personal letters and emails from people of things that were done to them, and that was not pleasant to read them. And that's why I pulled away from that scene, because it was actually that was the only time I was ever brought down. And then I would have people write me letters saying, "Oh, I'm a psychopath. I strangled my wife and I don't care." And it was very unpleasant. And it was very frightening, very frightening that, but that was the only time. But in terms of the other stuff, no, I don't. I just see it as information. It's just information to me. That's really all there is to it. I mean, no, it doesn't. I'm more likely to be brought down. I'll tell you what does bring me down is, and this is a weird one, if I'm on the road and I'm staying in a hotel and I don't have TV at home and I switch on the TV and the BBC News comes on, I instantly feel like my life force is being drained away, or Sky News or mainstream TV, or even picking up a mainstream newspaper and looking at it. That's what fucks me up, my energy up. And what does that tell you? So I can actually read about, kind of like the book. I can actually tell people the book of the San Cyprian and the rituals involving killing an animal and planting 2 seeds in its eyeballs, and and then using the saplings from the dead animal's corpse in order to do magic. That's just information to me. But the one that really gets me down, I wouldn't do anything like that. The one that really gets me down is like, that is the ultimate black magic, isn't it? I mean, that's what I wrote the book Anvil of the Psyche is about, the lords of perception. It's almost like they're using that stuff to destroy you in order to control you. And that's if you want to talk about surviving the future, throw away your television. I know it's a cliche and everyone said it, but it's absolutely true.
Next question is from Clem, and he's going places with his question. He's asking, do you think there will be a manned mission to Mars within the next 15 to 20 years or thereabouts that successfully reaches it? I tend to suspect that's a deeply haunted planet.
I would have said no until all these AI data centers came up, and I think that's another function of these AI data centers is to develop a deep space program, because getting to the moon is hard enough. Getting to Mars is really, really hard, and there's lots of variables involved. But these guys want to build a space station there. I'm suspicious that here's an outlandish theory for you. I think the human race may have actually been on Mars originally. And maybe that's what these allegories of things like Noah's Ark is about, that it's a folk memory, or maybe even the Atlantis thing, for all you know. Velikovsky's Worlds in Collision kind of ties in with this concept. Look at all the photographs coming back from these Martian landers. Will obviously look like constructions of, right back to the whole Cydonia thing with, what was his name? I can't remember the guy's name, but Richard Hoagland. And his whole Cydonia, I was watching I bought his VHS addressing NASA back in the 1990s. And he put forward a riveting case that there is a city on Mars, the face on Mars and all that kind of thing. And even Carl Sagan, who slagged it off at first before he died, said, no, it's definitely something strange. So, yeah, are they going home? Are they going home? But, there's the real space program, and then there's the secret space program. And we don't know what the secret space program really is. They could already be on Mars for all we know. But I do think there could be something to the fact that humans were originally on Mars. I know it's as crazy as that sounds, but I think there's been loads of civilizations, and I think some of them have actually been interplanetary. That's just a bit of speculation I'm throwing out there.
Question in from Peter Kennedy. He asks, would an old analog radio be useful for trying to detect sounds or voices from entities?
You know what's even better? An old analog TV. I have one, and I have an old Philips TV, and there's no terrestrial signals in Ireland now. It's all digital. And I live in the countryside, so there's very little RF. And I tell you, I'm getting some weird stuff coming through on, you just tune around the channels and you start hearing weird voices, and sometimes the static on the screen, I swear it forms pictures, faces sometimes. I think there's still a lot of terrestrial AM and FM broadcast, although funny you mention that, because I think the British BBC just stopped their long wave signal. That's gone now, I think. But the long wave signal was a good one for doing EVPs and other paranormal stuff for some reason. I don't know why. But radio, there's still too much interference from all kinds of things. But a TV, I still got the UHF aerial on the ceiling and on the roof. And I think there's a whole, you see me, like, I've done videos on the kind of thing like modern sorcery. So in the past, they would have used a crystal ball as an oracle. Well, an analog TV, maybe there'd be the new one. The new one, that could be. In the same way, the new alchemical vessel could be a microwave oven. This is the beauty of magic, and especially for pagans, is that it always changes with the times. It doesn't have to be antiquated and archaic. But yeah, I'm going to get serious. I was thinking this winter, I'm going to get very serious about maybe doing real experiments on the TV stuff, because that's a wide open bandwidth of frequencies where there's no TV signal at all. So what's coming in is definitely worth investigating more. And I would, if you can go to a shop and find an old analog TV for cheap, you can pick them up even in dumps for free, recycling centres. I'd take them home, and a lot of them still work, and see what you get, see what happens.
Next question is from Carrie Thomas. She asks, what do you think of the new plagues, Hanta, Ebola, etc.? Also, I have noticed in the past week or so that I and those around me are feeling more confusion, memory issues, erratic sleep patterns, emotionality, trying to avoid news, etc. Is there something in the ether, something heightened, perhaps impending for the end of this month?
Yeah, I think so. This could be why they're pushing all this stuff. Maybe the Earth is passing through some place in the solar system or in the galaxy that affects things, and they know this. I remember when What You Call first started, one of the first things I thought was, is an asteroid coming in? Are they hiding is COVID a cover story for an asteroid or something? Hantavirus? What is that? Oh yeah, it's the stuff they no longer talk about. It was on the news every minute, and all of a sudden it's gone like that. and then they're into the media is there to make money from pushing this bullshit. But the sleep pattern things, well, I made a video about it. Every single night, no matter what time I go to bed, I wake up at 3:30 on the dot. And it's not something I always did. It's only been happening the last year or so. And a lot of people are saying the same. You go to bed at 2 a.m., you wake up at 3:30. You go to bed at 9, you wake up at 3:30. It's the weirdest thing. Now, that suggests to me there might be something going on with the sun. There might be something going on with the sun. And that's, as Forteans, we need to start looking at the sun and watching events with that, because I think this could also be where they're building all these data things deep underground now. And that's why they're building that one under the White House. They're probably expecting an EMP from the sun, a coronal mass ejection. And what was the virus called? The coronavirus. A coronal mass ejection. And they were before, about 6 months before COVID started, there was lots of stuff in the news about a coronal mass ejection, and then we got coronavirus, the crown, in both cases, and that was enough for me to see with an augury going on there. But yeah, it could well be the sun that's messing us all up.
Question from Fanola next. She asks, what form does Thomas think the soul has as it leaves a body? Is there a shape? My father used to say it has an onion shape.
Yeah, I've heard that one, and I think that's quite common. It's not, a lot of cultures have said that it's shaped just like an onion with the kind of like the stem on it, and that's where it attaches to the new body. And that's actually not documented, but that's a common belief. I think, and I've seen videos where someone had a camera on someone who was dying in a hospital, and this orb of life orb came out of them at the moment the machine went, and it was shaped like an onion, and it kind of went up in the air like that. So yeah, I think maybe you're right, maybe it is, yeah.
This one from Seeker55. Seeker asks, how do you become a magician these days? Is there a school for magicians?
You mean like a Hogwarts? I don't know. How would you become? I think it's like being an artist. You can learn the stuff, but it is called the art. You're going to be shy at it, or you're going to be good at it. But yeah, no. Is there? I don't know. I mean, you see these occult circles generating up now and again, but I don't place any weight in them. It's a solitary journey you have to do on your own. You can have people that can inspire you and help you, books you can read, but ultimately it's a solitary journey.
The next one, Kate asks, what do you think will happen to you after you die? Do you believe in reincarnation, or is that a psyop as well?
I absolutely, totally believe in reincarnation as our destiny. It's the only post-mortal state that has excellent evidence connected to it. There are numerous stories of children stopping their parents saying, that's where I used to live when I was a man. And they find that the kid lived in that, knew everything. There's some incredible stories. It's taken as fact among religions such as the Druze, who openly accept. They go looking for their relatives after they've been reincarnated. But I think reincarnators, you can choose to come back in the same body or come back in another body. But I absolutely have a firm conviction that you reincarnate. Now, there's a lot of talk in recent times about escaping the reincarnation cycle, and I don't like that talk. I think it's kind of dangerous because I think it's not helpful. I mean, people who are only new to this stuff are now telling people not to avoid what they call the reincarnation trap. But how is it a trap if everything else in nature comes back? When trees come to life in the spring, is that a trap? When salmon return up the rivers to spawn, is that a trap? Well, it's all part of the same cosmic cycle, natural cycle of the universe. So I'm more suspicious of the people who call it a psyop or a trap than I am of reincarnation. I mean, what's their agenda? Wiping out souls? Because what happens otherwise? You just dissipate into nothing.
Another questioner on reincarnation, Trevi, he asks, can anyone reincarnate without having children?
Well, what would children have to do with reincarnation? I don't really understand that one. Because your children don't inherit their soul from you. They inherit your DNA, your biology, but they don't inherit your soul. That comes from somewhere else. No, I don't. It would have nothing to do with that. It's not that the two states are not relevant. We're not talking about reincarnation. Not hereditary things. It's now. There is an element of that. Your DNA acts like a kind of recording device. That's where cellular memories and stuff come on. But like, so people get a limb, they might start having vegetarians might start having a craving for chicken nuggets. The person that got the limb off used to love chicken nuggets. That's a documented real thing. But they didn't get the person inside them. They got like a kind of a memory left in the DNA coding. But it has nothing to do with it. It's two different things.
Yeah, we're coming up to 8:30 now, but there's loads of questions left, so we can keep on going until they're answered.
It's up to you guys. We'll go for another half an hour.
Grand.
Yeah.
But the question in from Janine McGreevy, she asks, "Hi Thomas, we know you're very fond of Joan of Arc. Do you think she's back in this reality?"
I'm not fond of Joan of Arc. I think she was. I think as George Bernard Shaw called her, he called her a queer bird, and that's kind of how I feel about her. She fascinates me, like how this teenage girl from rural France ends up leading the French army to defeat the English at the Battle of Orleans and things like that. It just makes no sense. Her whole story makes no sense. But when you look deeper into it, she might have been, a lot of people believe that she was probably a sign of a surviving pagan. The community in France were still practicing paganism. And she went to this, basically a grove, where she said she was communicating with spirits. Later she said they were angels, and she said she was a devout Christian. But remember, you can be a devout Christian and still believe in the paranormal and all this stuff. You know, it's only the church that says that stuff is wrong. You know, you yourself, if you experience it, you experience it. But I can't imagine the level of charisma that she must have had. Now, we're talking about hard-assed, like, military fighting men, veterans, that were being battered by the English in the French campaigns. And she leads them to successful victories. And probably died a virgin as well. So, is she alive in this reality? She's kind of like a living spirit. And this seems to be a uniquely French thing. And definitely worth looking into. In fact, the book of Saint Cyprian, he talks about nations and cities having a specific spiritual destiny. And the French seem to be remarkably good at this stuff. Not only do you have St. Joan, you have Napoleon. The Anglosphere is still terrified of Napoleon to this day. And when I went to visit his tomb in France, in Paris, let me tell you, you want to talk about a psychic charge. That guy is over 200 years dead, and yet his tomb had a psychic charge. And so the French seem to be very good at these characters. And remember that the Templars were French, you know, the whole thing of, you know, Jacques Damolay and all that stuff. And don't forget Baron J. Saunier of the priest down in the Landerock and the whole thing with that. It seems to be a very French thing, like a very mystical French thing, that they produce historical figures that seem to live forever through a kind of a charge. And Napoleon had tremendous charisma. Remember, the French army were sent out by the emperor to arrest him, and he just pleaded to them. And the old guard, the French army, the British couldn't believe how devoted they were to him. He genuinely loved his army, and they genuinely loved him. And that's, you know, that, to this day, even the film they made with the one awful film of Joaquin Phoenix, you can still see that the Anglosphere is still terrified of Napoleon for some reason, that they can't give him the credit he deserves. And they made that film made him look like neurotic or something. He was nothing of the sort that had women problems. He was an unbelievable individual. He was, and if you look at him unobjectively, he was trying to free Europe from all these royal families. He was the Epstein class buster of his day. And that's why they're still traumatized by him to this present. Maybe, the way King Herod was prophesied, the Christians say that King Herod was prophesied that the Messiah would be born, so he had all the babies put to death. I often wonder if the Anglosphere lives in terror. And they're always looking, where's the Napoleon going to come back? Is Joan of Arc going to come back? So, yeah, that's the way I see it. So, is she living today? Yeah, I mean, she could be, but but I think definitely her energy, her charge, like Napoleon, it never died. And she's that charge is becoming stronger in recent times. I don't even know why it suddenly attracted me. It was just out of the blue. It's sort of like St. Joan came into my head about 2 years ago, and it's been like that ever since, and I don't know why. So maybe she is back. Maybe that's what that means.
Next question is from Conan Barbarian again, and he asks, on the topic of the magic of the powerful, is there a specific time or event that may have triggered them to turn into enemies of their own populations?
Well, we know they use astrology. We know that for a fact, and they always have. And the JP Morgan, so everything they've done, even things in Ireland here like the Battle of the Boyne. We're going to be making a film on a remarkable alignment I've discovered in Ireland that goes also through Mellifont Abbey, where William of Orange spent the night before the Battle of the Boyne, and it's like on this kind of energy system, energy grid. And so they know the stuff. They know it. That's why I said they don't tell us the real birth dates. If they were going to make a move on us, they would absolutely wait until, as Lovecraft used to state, when the stars came right. Yeah, and that they definitely, if there's one thing you can say that they do, it's astrology. There's no doubt about that. I mean, JP Morgan said millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do. You hear that kind of, they do. I mean, I know for a fact, when I worked on Wall Street, I heard stories that they used to have astrologers visiting for traders. I don't know how true it was, but you'd hear these stories now and again. So, they do it when the stars were in their favour. Put it that way.
Question in from Claire. She asks, will you be doing any talks or events around Ireland or England this summer? The Unknown Mechanics would love to meet you in person.
Yes, the problem is venues. There is a talk of this becoming a roadshow in anywhere that we can find a venue. The problem is getting venues are not as easy, and I've lost my whole contact and network. See, when Nina Crane died, I'd lost all that whole network, or people have moved away, and I don't have that same network in England I used to have, and I don't know the people in Ireland, but so that I don't have that accessibility anymore. Well, after Ian died, I know I did that big event in Glastonbury with Maria Wheatley, but that was almost like saying goodbye to the gang, that all the people I'd worked with over the years, because they were already kind of drifting apart. I could kind of sense it. The AV guys who were very good at organising stuff. But that's so yes, absolutely 100%. I also want to do tours. There's also, we're looking into doing megalithic tours. Now, not big, heavy ones, like, say, picking a place in Ireland and me being the guide and getting a minibus and then going around visiting megaliths and maybe in England as well. So the answer to all those questions is yes. The problem is administration. And if anyone can help, if you know anybody, so ideally, who could help in this stuff, contact me, or better still, contact, I don't know, you guys have an email address? Contact the Inner Harp guys, because basically I'm terrible at administration, because it interrupts my own work. people always say to me, Thomas, how do you have this level of knowledge? It's because I don't do admin stuff. I let other people take care of that. So I haven't got the mind. My mind is not an administrative type of mind. So if you can contact the Inner Harp, I don't know if you're going to put the email address in there. There you go. The email address is in the window. Contact the guys and offer suggestions if you know of a hall or you're interested in tours. What we could do is we'll probably make a mailing list towards something like that. But definitely, I want to get back on the road, and I want to get out there doing tours of megalithic sites and stuff like that. And that's easy. That part you can organise. You can get a bus and a driver and things like that. But the logistics have changed. People have moved away, and I don't have the access. I'm really beginning from scratch again. So any help anyone can give me, I'd be grateful for that.
Next one is from Supervillain, and he's pushing the envelope out a bit. He asks, is there a connection between the plant on your table and your hair today? Love you.
Is there any? Yeah. That's better. Thanks. I'm envious. I was born with mad hair. I've always had mad hair. That's why in the 80s it was like attacked with a crimping iron, and like I found a photograph myself the other day, and I swear I looked like a cross between, when I was 20, I looked like 19, I looked like a cross between Ken Dodd and Robert Smith, and it was like out like really far like this as well. But yeah, no, my hair represents my spirit. It's untamable.
Next question from Eric. He asks, is it possible for one to create some kind of magical harm to another by knowing their natal chart, or is this false?
Create harm by?
By knowing their natal chart.
Yeah. Yeah, because you will know parts that are vulnerable. I mean, I think, the astrologers that I know and respect are very respectful of other people's data and information. Like people like Olivia and Fiona, they're very respectful of other people's private information. So that's who you deal with, You don't go willy-nilly to someone who's seen an ad in the paper or online or stuff and give your private information away. So it's like going to a psychologist. You want to go to someone who's going to be really respectful of your private thoughts and everything like that. You've got to safeguard yourself. So trust is hugely important and all that. I had a Vedic astrological reading done in Sri Lanka, and that's the only time I ever went to anybody with my specific details, because they're on the other side of the world and they never heard of me. But and it was a very good, I might add, thing I got. But just be careful. Like treat your birth and the times and all that the same way you treat the PIN number on your ATM machine. Don't give it out to everyone.
Question from Tough Eyes, who asks, even if you have said before that we cannot completely trust the mythological cycles of Irish mythology because of Christian monks, I still admire Lug Lovda. Was he the saviour of an aeon?
Who's the name?
I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Lugh. Lug.
Lulan Fada?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Lugh is a European-wide archetype. He's not just, just not relevant to Ireland. London is probably named after him. And there's actually, his effigy has been found in Gaul and France. Lusitania, which is the original name for Portugal, which is named after him. And by the way, the current name for Portugal is the Port du Gallic, which means the port of the Gallic bearer, the weather hag of the West. So the Irish gods and goddesses are not just in Ireland, and Lugh is one of them. And as a saviour, as a neon, absolutely, that's what he represents. He represents the like the second battle of Moitura, where he slays Balor after Balor kills Nuada. That's like this is a whole new thing that we really got to start. I got to really start working on the concept that this is how we get past the Christian editorialization. Is we compare them. Well, we read my book, Dave. You read my book, the Druid Code. You know that you compare them to the Vedic texts such as the Bhagavad Gita and the Mahabharata. Now, it's always been a mystery why there were two battles of Moitura in two locations. One down near Cong, I think it was, in Galway and Mayo border, and the other one up in Sligo, up here, near Lough Allen. That's because the two battles represent one in the conscious world and one in the subconscious world. One is a spiritual battle and one is a psychological battle. So very interesting. If you read the Irish annals as archetypes rather than direct stories, you're more likely to get it. But absolutely, Lu is it's the root of that word is Luca, which is where Lucifer comes from, where lucid comes from, lucid thinking, where a flash, Loki comes from that as well. It's a flash, a powerful change. It's a threshold kind of moment. It's the clearing out of all that was and the beginning of all that was new. So it'd be like what Crowley called the crowned and conquered child, that kind of thing. The beginning of a new thing. Yeah, so absolutely. But remember, Lu is not just prevalent to Ireland. He's a European-wide deity with ancient Indo-European origins.
Just a reminder again for anybody who might have missed it that we've put the email in the description box below for anyone who wants to help or to get in touch.
Yeah, so the email is in the description box.
So Peter Kennedy asks, do you believe in the Rendlesham Forest incident to have been true? And what do you make of the binary code messages that were decoded from it, especially the location coordinates?
Well, a good friend of mine, Roger, in England, is a paranormal. He lives in Wales now. He's a paranormal investigator who. The video is on Beyond Room 313, and some of the photographs that he took in Rendlesham back in the day are just mind blowing. You can see these entities these Lovecraftian entities manifesting. So that's two different things now. Rendlesham Forest itself is definitely haunted. The UFO thing could be a cover story for that. We know there's a US Air Force base very close. Now, the weird thing about Rendlesham Forest is it's not that old. It's only just over 100 years old, so it's not this ancient primordial forest. Yet it's saturated with paranormal and Fortean stuff. Could that be caused by the military base nearby? Definitely something that should be looked into. But the UFO, I've never really believed the UFO thing about Rendlesham. I think that was a cover story but I definitely believe that Rendlesham is a place of tremendous supernatural stuff. And the incident did happen, but I think the spaceship part was a cover story for that.
Next one is from Mitesh or Mitesh. He asks, why is time going faster and faster?
I don't know. I did have this theory years ago, and I made a video about 15 years ago, that when you look at the golden section spiral, it starts out on a long arc, and as it reaches to its conclusion, it becomes the arcs become tighter and tighter. So my theory was, as cycles come to an end, you would have a long arc. And then when it comes to the section of the golden section where it comes to the center of the sequence of the spirals get tighter and faster like a whirlpool. And that if I do have an excuse for it, it's that we could be coming towards the end of a cycle that's defined like everything in nature by the golden section and the Fibonacci sequence, and it's speeding up to the tight numbers before coming out the other side.
Another question from Eileen. She asks, hi Thomas, Astrologers spoke that the return of Pluto in Aquarius was an augury of change, citing that when it last occurred, it ushered in many changes around the world, such as the USA and the French Revolution. Are we witnessing a revolution going on in the world since Pluto's return? Do you think there is a dynamic taking place currently in the world that mainstream media just doesn't touch upon? Is it remotely possible that the USA is making its final breakaway from Anglo influences as it tried to do during the American Revolution?
I don't know about that one, but that's what you're describing is more commonly associated with comets, the return of comets. But Pluto, wow, where do you even begin with that planet? I mean, John Michael Greer wrote a great book on Pluto. Pluto seems to have defined the world that we live in today. And remarkably, Lovecraft predicted it as this place called Yugoth, where the Migo were stationed before they went to the Great Bear in the Sky. And he described Pluto exactly as the New Horizons spacecraft photographed it. It's not a ball of ice. It seems to be a living planet with volcanoes and probably has a vast ocean underneath the ice where there could be living things in it. So Pluto wasn't a dead, cold, barren world. It was a remarkable looking place. But since Pluto was discovered, you had things like so many things happened, like the Federal Reserve, the removal from the gold standard. You had the rise of communism and fascism. The World War II, modern art, cinema, television, all the things we define with the modern world. Pluto was almost like the astrological, or the astronomical custodian of these changes on Earth. So whether it will usher in the Anglosphere's control of the United States loosening, I don't know about that. That's usually comets that predict those kinds of things. But Pluto is one of these planets we have to watch because there's a magical connection between us and that planet.
Next question is from Trevi McTrev. He asks, is Crowley another psyop like Wicca to keep people from traditional folk paganism? He does practice Hebrew letter Kabbalah after all.
Yeah, I've often thought about that a lot myself. You remember, Crowley came out of a world that there wasn't much else other than the magical tradition of the Middle Ages, which came initially from the Greek magic, but it was all translated through Hebrew because it came through Kabbalah and things like that. He got his magical education with the Golden Dawn, which used all the Hebrew stuff as well. So, one of my theories is that the reason why the Aeon of Horus came to an abrupt ending was because of the pagan revival and the internet. And that's why his magical world lost its eventual longevity. He did say a few things on paganism, and it was quite flattering. And remember, he was also the person who brought yoga and a lot of Hindu mysticism into Europe. He popularized yoga, the actual, the yoga exercise, spiritual exercise, whatever you call it. So that's ultimately pagan as well. So to say he wasn't involved in paganism wouldn't be fully true because, and he also used Egyptian. I mean, the bornless rite rituals comes from ancient Greece, and that's pagan. So he was probably just using the software. You see, you can use this stuff as a software system. So to say he discounted all pagan stuff isn't true. He incorporated a fair bit of it.
Question in from Niall. He asks, does there exist a Gaelic nobility in Ireland today, and are they distinct from nobility elsewhere? And where do you see these people in positions of power?
RTE. There seems to be a weird kind of nobility around RTE. If you're a member of a family connected to that television station, radio station, no matter what you go into, you seem to always have doors open for you. It seems it's a very peculiar system, and if they exist, they're there. But apparently, we lost them all with the flight of the Earls, didn't we? And they were replaced by a kind of an Anglo-British, an Anglo elite. That's who really is in Ireland, like the Earls of Leinster and all that stuff. And then the normal ones like the Fitzgeralds and the Kennedys. That you could look to the Kennedys. That's a bullshit story that Joseph Kennedy's father was a poor guy who came over to America. They were a wealthy merchant family in New Ross in south of Ireland. They were wine importers and exporters of all kinds of goods. He wasn't a poor immigrant, and so the Kennedys, maybe the Kennedys.
Question in from Freddie. Freddie asks, do you have an opinion on the art of the Spanish artist Francisco Goya?
What about him?
Do you have an opinion on him?
Yeah, he was amazing. In fact, his painting of Francis of Assisi looks like me. He just was weird, and they had the National Gallery of Ireland had a retrospective on his work, and they brought some of the paintings over from Madrid. Yeah, phenomenal. Just Goya, just one of the masters, absolutely.
From Patricia, she asks, why is there an obelisk to Wellington in Phoenix Park, Island Bridge, Dublin?
Good question. Why did it terrify the shit out of me when I was a little kid? I used to go there with my parents on summer evenings like this, and it'd be bright till like 10:30. And I used to kick a football up the side of it. It's the gigantic obelisk. I think it's the largest obelisk in Europe. And I used to look up at the friezes which did show battles like the Peninsula Wars or the Battle of Waterloo, like battles that Wellington's army had won in. And they used to frighten me. And I remember like my friends when this is about 11 now, going up to the bottom of that, and kids were able to climb onto this friezes, and they would put graffiti on it and stuff like that. And I remember thinking of my friend lifting me up, and then I said, I don't want to go there. I was afraid of it. It wasn't until many years later I discovered that those bronze friezes they're made from the melted down cannons that were used at Waterloo. So they have the death energy of English and French and Irish and other Dutch troops and Prussian troops who died at Waterloo is in the death energy, and they're suffering. And loads of those friezes, there's the fellas dying on the ground, in the. That's where the cannon. So, and then the thing is a gigantic obelisk, and the only rail line in Ireland that connects the entire Irish rail system runs directly underneath it through the Phoenix Park Tunnel, directly underneath the obelisk. So, like, there's your transmission system of rail lines, all through the network of rail. They could have went anywhere through that tunnel, but the engineers specifically went directly under the Wellington Monument. It just seems so purposeful. The thing, it's the Quadrant of Sacrifice, and it's right across the river. On the other side of the river is the War Memorial Garden for the Irish that died in World War I, and that's all full of Masonic stuff as well. So, that obelisk it scares me. It's the size of it, the way it looks. As it frightened me as a kid, it's so ominous looking. It's not, but it definitely has a magical, supernatural power, and it's full of the death energy of the people who were killed. When you're looking at those friezes of battles like the Battle of Waterloo and statues, and they're actually made from cannons that killed those men. And if that's not a cult, I don't know what is. It's a gigantic wand or something.
It's just come up to 9 o'clock now, so we'll just have a few more questions to finish off. InsureTech was asking, do you think there's a relationship between military bases and paranormal areas?
There's definitely a relationship between military bases and megaliths. Stonehenge, lots of the ones in England. Even in Ireland, the Glen of Amal, where the Irish Army own a big chunk of the Wicklow Mountains. You can only go visit the megaliths when the green flag is up. That means the army isn't testing artillery shells. You're not allowed, if you go to see the megaliths when the red flag is up, the military police will come up and arrest you. And there's Air Force bases all over Scandinavia, particularly in Sweden, that have been built up where there's megaliths. So I don't, paranormal areas maybe, but absolutely for some reason they love building megaliths. They love building military bases on where there's megaliths. Stonehenge being Stonehenge. Even today in Stonehenge, you still see the tanks, the tracks where the British Army used to run their tanks.
One from Noah from Sri Lanka. She says hi from Sri Lanka.
Who's from Sri Lanka?
Noah. And he says hi from Sri Lanka. I know you have a great love for this country. Any places you recommend?
All of it. All of it. It's very heavily populated, so the cities are exciting kind of from that cultural point of view. I love the jungles. I can't remember the name of the place, but the Buddhist temples in the jungles in the mountains where the megaliths are up there. Sigiriya, of course, but that's a hell of a slog getting up that. Even if it's not an easy climb. You know, even though it's all steps up, it kills you, especially in the hot weather. And it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, so it's full of tourists. And if you go to my Beyond Room 313 channel, you just type Sri Lanka into the text. There's lots of things in there, including the Stargate in the centre of the country. That's, again, the megalithic sites are where the Buddhist temples are. And there's also things at Sigiriya, which was very interesting, that I saw a documentary before I went out showing that in the jungle there's all kinds of megaliths as well. And there's these interesting stones with squares that would probably had crystals. And there's actually one part of the mountain where there's a crystal inserted into one of these slots that hasn't been taken out. These people had some understanding of crystal magic and technology. But the guy was saying to me, you can't go into the jungle because you'll get eaten by the crocodiles. Because I didn't go in, but I saw one or two of them, and yeah, it's you think Ireland is controlled in that stuff. You ask any tour guides, well, who are the people who built the stuff before Buddha came, and they always say, oh, devil worshippers. It's just like the Christian world. The previous group were devil worshippers, but yeah, amazing country, amazing people. Beautiful, like it's tropical paradise, really. If I didn't have any commitments, I'd probably go live there. I really would. Yeah, you're very lucky to live there. I think it's like Ireland. It's a special place.
We're moving from Sri Lanka to Sweden. This is not a question, but we could leave this as the last question or comment. It's from a grain of mold, and in response to the call out for just assistance in a tour or whatever, she says, Thomas, if you have any interest in coming to Sweden in the future, I'd love to help, be involved. I have a background in promoting bands.
Absolutely. I've been to Norway like about 6 or 7 times, so I've never spoken in Sweden. So yeah, I mean, I need to contact the guys and let's see what we can do. If you have any suggestions. And yeah, anywhere. Timbuktu, we'll go if you find a venue. So
thanks for everybody.
Listen, tonight, everyone, that was brilliant. I really enjoyed myself tonight. The questions were absolutely outstanding. And I look forward to the next time we do this. And enjoy your week. There's a load of new stuff coming up on the Unknown Machine channel, including the first outdoor film we've made, which I'm sure you will enjoy very much, regarding the early Christian Irish pagan rollover site that took the guys to, and with some spectacular drone footage. I've seen it, and as well as me yapping. And also, a few other things. So there's lots of good stuff, including I'll be doing new kinds of like themes, like Gothic Ireland. We've got an ongoing theme about the Gothic movement in Ireland, the whole kind of Gothic literature and art thing in Ireland, and that whole thing. And also things like television and mind control. I want to start doing things about that, like TV shows that were actually evil and were put out there to destroy public morale and stuff like that. Things like soap operas and so on, and drama shows. So there's lots of good stuff coming, and so thank you for your patronage. Thank you for subscribing and paying the $5 a month or whatever it is to be a member. And thanks for all the questions, and loads of love, and thanks to the lads here for putting this together, and we'll see you next time.